Most people live their lives begging to be chosen. They chase validation like it's oxygen, desperate for someone, anyone, to see their worth. And yet, they do not see it themselves. This is the sickness of the modern soul, to feel invisible in a world that never stops looking, and still believe it's your fault for not shining bright enough. But the truth is this: value does not scream, it does not chase, it does not explain, it simply is. And the moment you understand your intrinsic value, not the price others assign to you, you begin to move differently. You are not a product on a shelf, waiting for the highest bidder. You are not a discounted version of yourself just because someone failed to recognize your depth. The mistake is in thinking that your worth must be proven rather than realized. But the eyes that cannot see gold in its raw form are not worthy of its shine once polished. If you believe you are ordinary, you will allow yourself to be treated as replaceable. You will negotiate for attention. You will plead for space. And you will always come up short, not because you are small, but because you handed the world the measuring stick. To make them see you as a luxury, you must first stop offering yourself as a bargain. Stop lowering your standards in the name of connection. Stop shrinking yourself so others can feel comfortable in your presence. There is no dignity in desperation, no respect in being available to anyone who asks. Luxury is not found in how many people want you, it's found in how rare your energy is, how sacred your silence feels, how difficult it is to access your inner world without merit. I know. This isn't easy. You were taught to please, to perform, to prove. You were told that if you give more, love more, try more, you will finally be enough. And yet, the more you gave, the more they pulled away. Because deep down, people do not cherish what comes too easily. They do not respect what has no boundaries. And so you became an option, not because you lacked beauty or intelligence, but because you forgot that your presence alone is the luxury. Luxury does not beg to be chosen. It is chosen by those who have the eyes to see it and the soul to recognize it. It doesn't audition. It doesn't convince. It simply exists. And by existing in its full, unapologetic essence, it creates desire. So you must ask yourself, not what can I do to be picked, but what must I remember to see myself as priceless? The answer is this: you must stop waiting for others to crown you when you were born with your own. Everything about you that you hide, water down, or edit to become more likable is the very thing that would set you apart if you embraced it. Your intensity, your silence, your mystery, your boundaries, your expectations, these are not flaws. These are features of someone who is no longer willing to be misunderstood in exchange for temporary affection. You must walk into every room knowing that your value is not up for debate, not because you're arrogant, but because you're aware. And when you become aware, you stop entertaining anything that asks you to abandon yourself for it. You stop explaining your standards. You stop overextending in hopes that they'll finally see you. Because here's the truth: they can see you. Most people see your power. They just pretend not to, hoping you haven't noticed it yet, hoping you'll keep discounting yourself for their convenience. But the moment you wake up to your worth, you become too expensive for their gain. And you must be okay with that. You must be okay with being too much for those who want too little. You must be okay with being passed up by those who are looking for easy access, for surface-level connection, for something ordinary. You are not ordinary, and so you will not be for everyone. That's the point. That's the power. What is rare is not supposed to be widely accepted. It is supposed to be understood only by those with the capacity to receive it. So, if you want to be seen as a luxury, you must first become unavailable to anyone who treats you like an afterthought. You must rise above the need to be chosen and instead choose yourself so powerfully that your absence becomes a statement. Because when you understand your intrinsic value, truly understand it, you stop offering discounts. You stop making yourself accessible to indecision. You stop waiting to be seen. You become the vision. The moment you stop needing their approval is the moment they start noticing your presence. That's the paradox no one tells you. When you're hungry for validation, they sense it. And the truth is, people don't value what needs them. They value what doesn't. You think that being kind, available, responsive, constantly proving your worth will earn you love. But the one who gives endlessly without boundaries becomes invisible. Because to be everywhere is to be nowhere in particular. To be too accessible is to be too forgettable. You were not born to perform. You were not made to shapeshift for the comfort of others. But somewhere along the way, you were conditioned to believe that if you just did a little more, gave a little more, smiled a little more, they would finally see you, they would finally stay, they would finally choose you. And so you became a mirror, reflecting what others wanted to see, never what you truly are. But a mirror is only useful until the person sees their own reflection and walks away. And you're left with nothing but the emptiness of approval that never lasted. Validation is a drug. It gives you a high that fades as soon as they stop clapping, as soon as they stop texting, as soon as they stop needing something from you. And in that silence, you panic. You ask yourself what you did wrong. You retrace every step, thinking you could have been more, when the real betrayal was abandoning yourself just to feel accepted. You forgot that the one who truly knows their worth does not wait to be validated. They validate themselves through their standards, their solitude, their refusal to compromise their identity for temporary affection. You must understand, the moment you make someone else responsible for your self-worth, you hand them the power to destroy you. If their approval lifts you, their rejection will break you. That is no way to live. That is emotional slavery disguised as love. And the reason most people remain as options is because they live for applause instead of alignment. They want to be chosen so badly that they lose themselves in the process. But what is the value of being chosen when you had to disappear to be accepted? People are attracted to what is self-contained. What doesn't flinch under silence? What doesn't beg under pressure? There is a mystery to someone who validates themselves internally. Someone who doesn't need your yes to feel worthy. Who can walk away even while wanting to stay. Who would rather lose a connection than lose themselves. That kind of energy is powerful. That kind of energy is rare. And rarity, by its very nature, commands attention without needing to ask for it. So if you want to stop being an option, you must stop making your self-worth negotiable. You must stop adjusting your truth to match their comfort. The people who can't accept your full expression are simply not meant to stand in your light. Let them go. You were not meant to be consumed by the masses. You were meant to be revered by the few who see you clearly without needing you to be anything other than exactly who you are. And yes, it will be lonely at first, because when you stop needing validation, you also stop attracting those who were only ever interested in what you could give them. When you detach, they will fall away. But let them. Their absence is not your loss. It is your liberation. It is the return of your soul to its rightful place, whole, grounded, and untouchable. When you no longer seek validation, something incredible happens. You start becoming the standard. You start becoming the one people want to impress, to earn, to understand. Not because you are playing hard to get, but because you are no longer playing at all. You've left the game entirely. And in doing so, you rise, quietly, powerfully, authentically. Because what is truly valuable does not campaign for attention. It does not audition for love. It does not dance for validation. It simply lives. And those who are meant to see it will. There's a reason people stare longer at silence than at noise. Real presence. True presence. Doesn't come from being flashy or loud, it comes from something much deeper. It's the calm in your voice, the steadiness in your eyes, The way you carry yourself, like you know exactly who you are, even when no one is looking. You want to be seen as a luxury? Then stop dressing up your emptiness and start cultivating your essence. Because real luxury doesn't beg for attention. It simply draws it in, effortlessly, magnetically, without ever needing to try. We live in a world where people have learned to decorate the surface while neglecting the soul. They learn how to appear desirable, but they don't know how to be someone worth desiring. They master the performance, but they fear the pause. They speak in curated tones, live in curated moments, and forget that presence isn't about what you look like. It's about the energy that follows you into a room, and that energy cannot be faked. You can wear elegance, but if you don't embody it, people will feel the gap. They always do. Your worth is not in how much attention you can gather, but in how little you need it. The world teaches you to chase aesthetics, to build the appearance of value. But no matter how much you decorate a hollow shell, it will always feel fragile. When you have depth, you don't need decoration. You don't need to shout your worth to be noticed. It's there in your stillness. It's there in your restraint. It's there in your refusal to prove yourself. True elegance is found in someone who doesn't flinch at silence, who doesn't need to fill space to feel seen, who understands that their mere presence can shift a room, not because they're louder, but because they're more anchored. That's what people remember. Not the one who needed to be everywhere, but the one who stood quietly and somehow said more without speaking. Stop focusing on visibility and start cultivating substance. You want people to see you as a luxury? Then become someone who brings value by simply being. And to do that, you must step into your own quiet power. You must know who you are when no one is clapping, when the room goes quiet, when you're not being praised, desired, or adored. Because in those moments, most people fall apart, but you, if you've done the work, you remain whole. Parenting. There is no luxury in pretending. There is no elegance in needing to be everything to everyone. You become magnetic when you become true. When your voice comes from somewhere rooted, not rehearsed. When your presence feels grounded, not performative. People feel it when you've done the work. They may not be able to name it, but they sense it. It's the way you don't chase. It's the way you don't shrink. It's the way you look at someone, not to be seen, but to see. In that presence, people begin to respect your silence more than they once respected your words. They lean in. They listen. Because your energy speaks first. And when your energy is rooted in depth, people stop treating you like an option. They realize they've encountered something they don't often see. Not someone who is desperate to be liked, but someone who is devoted to being real. Do not trade depth for attention. Do not trade truth for popularity. You may get the crowd, but you will lose the crown. And the crown is not given to the loudest. It is given to the most authentic. To the one who carries themselves with inner dignity, with a sense of self that is not shaken by who walks in or out of their life. That's when you stop being seen as replaceable. That's when people begin to respect your time, your words, your silence, because they know it's not about how many people can see you, but how few are allowed to truly know you. And those who carry depth, who radiate presence, who don't perform to be perceived, they are not an option. They are a rarity. You don't become luxury by imitating it. You become luxury by embodying what cannot be bought or borrowed. Self-possession. The ones who move through life with quiet strength, who feel deeply but don't collapse into every emotion. They're the ones people respect. Emotional detachment is not coldness. It's not indifference. It's mastery. It's the ability to feel everything and still choose how you respond. Most people are slaves to how they feel. They love when they're loved. They disappear when they're hurt. They rage, they break, and they confuse that chaos for passion. But true power isn't in reacting, it's in staying rooted, especially when everything inside you wants to run, scream, or chase. You must learn to feel deeply but hold lightly, to love someone without needing them to complete you, to care without clinging. That's where freedom begins, because as long as your emotions control your decisions, you will always be vulnerable to the whims of others. They can raise you with a word, they can destroy you with silence. And when people know they have that kind of access to your center, they stop respecting your boundaries. You become predictable, you become easy to unbalance. But when you master detachment, not as a defense mechanism, but as a conscious way of being, everything changes. You become a mystery. Not because you're trying to hide, but because you're no longer leaking your energy in every direction. People start wondering what you're thinking, how you're feeling, why you didn't react. And in that silence, in that calm, you become powerful. Because people can sense when they can't manipulate your emotions, and it forces them to deal with you differently. There's a dignity that comes from not needing to prove how much you care, from not explaining every feeling, from being able to sit in discomfort without needing to resolve it immediately. And that's rare. That's luxury, because the world is full of over-explainers, over-feelers, overreactors. But the one who feels the storm and still speaks with clarity, still moves with intention, that person becomes un. And no, this doesn't mean shutting down. It doesn't mean pretending not to feel. It means making your emotions your allies, not your captors. It means learning to observe them instead of drowning in them. When someone triggers you, you don't need to lash out. You don't need to prove your worth or defend your value. You breathe. You return to yourself. You remember who you are. And in that space, you respond from wisdom, not from fear. There is nothing more disarming than someone who cannot be emotionally baited. Someone who doesn't flinch when ignored, who doesn't chase when dismissed, who doesn't crumble when rejected. That kind of emotional discipline confuses people. It forces them to see you as someone they cannot control, and when they realize they cannot control you, they begin to respect you. Sometimes even fear losing you. The ones who hold themselves with this kind of centeredness, they don't need to yell to be heard. Their calm is louder than most people's shouting. Their silence says more than most people's explanations, and their absence, when given, feels heavier than others' constant presence. That's the energy that makes people stop and look again. Not because you asked them to, but because they realize they've encountered someone rare, someone unshakable, someone they can't put in a category or play like a game. This is the kind of energy that stops you from being seen as just another option, because options are chosen when they're convenient, but luxury is remembered even when it's gone. And the truth is, emotional detachment is the foundation of that energy. Not as a wall, but as a practice of self-respect. You care, but you don't cling. You feel, but you don't fold. You love, but you don't lose yourself. And yes, there will be people who call you distant, hard to read, maybe even cold. Let them. Their confusion is not your concern. Their misinterpretation of your strength is not your burden to carry. Because the ones who truly see you, the ones who are capable of standing in your stillness without needing to shake it, they will never ask you to break your own center just to make them feel secure. You don't need to explain your calm. You don't need to justify your peace. And you certainly don't need to lower your emotional discipline so others feel more in control. Because the one who can sit in silence, who can love without attachment, who can walk away without anger, that's the one who becomes unforgettable. You can't demand to be seen as valuable while constantly choosing situations where you are treated like an afterthought. That contradiction is the very thing that keeps you stuck. So many people cry out for respect, for recognition, for love, but then they keep saying yes to what wounds them. They stay in dynamics where they are barely considered, where they are only needed when convenient, where their presence is tolerated, not treasured. And then they wonder why no one sees them as a priority. But here's the truth. No one will ever treat you as a luxury if you continue to treat yourself like an option. Every time you allow someone to return without accountability, every time you downplay your own needs to keep the peace, every time you explain your worth to someone determined not to see it, you reinforce the message that you can be mishandled. And people learn from patterns. If you accept crumbs, they will never offer you the whole meal. Not because you don't deserve it, but because you've shown them that you'll settle for less. And that's the quiet part. No one wants to admit. We train others how to treat us, not just with our words, but with our choices. It takes courage to walk away from what's familiar. It takes strength to hold your standard when your heart wants to compromise just to feel close to someone. But every time you choose alignment over attachment, you reclaim a piece of yourself. You stop negotiating with your own dignity. You stop abandoning yourself just to avoid being abandoned by someone else. And slowly you begin to teach the world a new way to treat you, not by force, not by performance, but by simply refusing to stay in places that dim your worth. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable, because saying no to what hurts you often means stepping into loneliness. It means sitting in silence rather than chasing validation. It means leaving texts unanswered, doors closed, conversations unspoken. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity, out of self-honor. Because your healing will offend the ones who benefited from your lack of boundaries. But you must let it. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them wonder what happened. You don't owe everyone an explanation. You owe yourself your peace. People often ask, how do I make them see me differently? But the better question is, how do I start treating myself differently? Because the shift does not begin with them. It begins with you. You stop over-explaining. You stop chasing closure. You stop proving your value. You stand in your truth, quietly, consistently. You hold space for your own worth, even when no one claps for it. And the moment you become unavailable to chaos, to inconsistency, to emotional crumbs, that's the moment people begin to feel the weight of your absence. And in that absence, they realize what your presence truly meant. But you can't teach them that lesson if you keep returning too soon. If you keep giving one more chance, one more excuse, one more piece of yourself, you think you're being loving, forgiving, patient, but what you're really doing is betraying your own standard. And love without self-respect isn't love at all. It's attachment wearing a mask. It's fear pretending to be compassion. There is nothing wrong with having a soft heart. But your softness means nothing if it's not protected by strong boundaries. You are not here to be emotionally available to anyone who knows your value but chooses to ignore it. You are here to be whole, to be grounded, to be rare. And that means sometimes the most loving thing you can do is leave. Leave the conversation that goes in circles. Leave the connection that keeps you anxious. Leave the connection that keeps you anxious. Leave the story where you are always proving, always pleasing, because your energy is sacred. And the more you realize that, the more you'll start to see that not everyone deserves access to it. Not everyone is meant to sit at your table. And the ones who are, they won't need to be convinced. They'll see it. They'll respect it. They'll match it. You teach people how to treat you by refusing to remain where you are not valued. One of the greatest illusions we carry is the belief that being chosen by others will finally make us feel enough. That if someone sees us, wants us, picks us, then maybe, just maybe, we'll stop questioning our worth. But the deeper truth is this. If you don't already feel like you're enough, being chosen won't satisfy you. It will only become another performance, another place to prove, another mask to wear. And eventually, you'll feel just as empty. Only now, you'll be surrounded by people who were drawn to the role you played, not the person you are. You don't rise by being liked. You rise by being true. The world is full of people who are likable, agreeable, palatable, but very few who are unforgettable. And unforgettable doesn't come from fitting in. It comes from standing out, not by trying to be different, but by daring to be real. That means letting go of the need to please, letting go of the desire to be liked by everyone, because the price of universal approval is always self-abandonment. You end up trimming your edges, softening your truth, toning down your light, just to avoid discomfort. But you weren't born to be a diluted version of yourself. When you carry yourself like you are the prize, something shifts in the way people perceive you. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. It's the quiet knowing that your presence is a gift, your time is sacred, your energy is not to be wasted. But this knowing doesn't come from surface confidence, it comes from doing the hard inner work. It comes from sitting with your wounds and learning to heal them without demanding others do it for you. It comes from no longer confusing attention with love or proximity with depth. Most people are so desperate to be chosen, they forget to choose themselves. They wait for someone else to validate their beauty, their intelligence, their heart. But if your value increases or decreases based on someone else's perception, then it was never rooted in truth to begin with. You don't become valuable the moment someone recognizes it, you already are. Their recognition doesn't make it real, it only reveals whether they have the capacity to see clearly. And not everyone does. Some people will overlook you because they are still drawn to chaos. Some will resist you because your calm threatens their patterns. Some will walk away because they cannot consume you the way they've consumed others. Let them. Your job is not to be digestible for people who lack the appetite for depth. Your job is to remain true to yourself, to your path, to your standard. You do not win by chasing. You do not win by proving. You win by becoming so secure in your essence that anyone who doesn't honor it simply falls away. Not because you pushed them, but because they could not stand in the presence of someone who no longer needs to be chosen to feel complete. And this is the moment your life begins to change, when you stop trying to convince the world of your worth and start walking like it's unquestionable. When you stop shrinking in rooms just to be accepted. When you stop tolerating half effort, half love, half attention. Because real value isn't loud. It doesn't campaign, it simply is. It speaks for itself in how you speak to yourself, in what you allow, in what you no longer entertain. There is a difference between being wanted and being respected. Many will want you, few will respect you. But the ones who do, they'll treat you like a standard, not a backup plan. And the only way to attract that level of reverence is to first give it to yourself. No more negotiating your needs, no more settling for almost, no more handing your worth to people who only show up when it's convenient. The more you embody your value, the less accessible you become to those who don't see it. You are not here to be chosen. You are here to choose. And when you finally understand that, you won't just stop being an option. You'll become unforgettable. You don't become a luxury by shouting louder. You become a luxury by embodying stillness, by living with clarity, by knowing who you are so deeply that anyone who fails to see it is simply too blind to matter. Let others chase attention. You become the standard. The moment you stop asking to be chosen is the moment they realize you never needed to be. If this message stirred something in you, it means you're ready to stop settling, subscribe, and walk this journey with us. Thank you.